Hi everyone, my name is Anne Andrews and I have spent over 40 years working with high-performing teams. And I got a call one day from a nurse manager who said, had I done any work on the subject of bullying? And I hadn't. Yeah, it kind of comes in occasionally when I'm dealing with toxic teams or teams in conflict. But to absolutely describe it as bullying, no, I didn't. But I said, look, tell me what the problems are and let's see what I can do for you. And so basically what she was saying was that she represents about 200 caregivers throughout New Zealand. And they're lovely people, they're mostly doves and they're absolutely beautiful, mostly women. And unfortunately, we got strange times at the moment. Patients were abusing them, patients' families were abusing them, co-workers were abusing each other, and lower level nurse managers were under a lot of pressure, and it was just not a pleasant environment. And she said she wondered if I could help them learn to be a bit more assertive, not aggressive, but assertive. And I said, yeah, let's see what we can do. And so because there were 200 staff and they were all over New Zealand, we decided to do it via webinar, which is great, but it's visual. And so a lot of the things I was trying to describe to them was, try saying this or try not to say that or whatever. They asked if I could write those things down for them. So it just ended up being a book called Names Will Never Hurt Me. And so if you look at the first slide, these are just very quick videos about the books I've written. In the book, I cover understanding ourselves because we're the point of first base, if you like. If we are one of those lovely, gentle, kind, caring people, some people see us as absolute targets, and we have to learn how to be able to stand up to people to say that's not okay, or I don't appreciate being spoken to like that. And so what I did with each of them was I sent a self-esteem test, because my belief is if you have a healthy self-esteem, you are not likely to get abused by anyone because you'll stand up for yourself. And of course, what happened with most of them is they all had very, very low self-esteem. And so in the book, I cover the difference between being assertive and being aggressive. Being aggressive gets you nothing. In fact, it just makes a situation worse. I talk about the signs of a toxic workplace. And of course, this particularly was a toxic workplace. I talk about how to address inappropriate behaviors in your team. And I absolutely talk about how to deal with bullies at work. I talk about, but also just to come back to that one, because these were mostly female and we had them all on a webinar, it was fairly obvious from some of the comments in the comment box that not only were these lovely people being abused at work, but they would quite often go home to being abused at home. And I couldn't cover that in the webinar because it was a public forum. And so I made sure that in the book, I have a whole section on how to deal with people who abuse you outside the workplace. And I teach people how to end the games once and for all. Because honestly, if you stand up to people, first of all, they're shocked. Secondly, they go, oh, okay. And then thirdly, they'll think, okay, well, there's no point me trying to abuse that person because she's got her act together, and they'll leave you alone. So if you look at the next slide, so that's what the book covers. But one of the most important things I want to cover in this short video was understanding what bullying is and what it isn't. And I often get calls from, because I am in HR, I often get calls from employees saying, my boss is a bully. I say, okay, well, talk to me about that. What is it that's happening? And it could be a he or a she. Please don't think that it's just men that bully people. Women can be just as bad. In fact, in some cases, it can be worse. And I said, so tell me what it is. And they're, oh, well, she shouts at everybody and abuses everybody. Okay, that's not bullying. It's not pleasant and it's not appropriate and it's terrible leadership, but it isn't bullying, because bullying is an abuse of power and position. Yes. It's deliberate and debilitating and repeated. Yes. But bullying is nearly always targeted at just one person, not a group, not a whole team. They usually target one person and they often do it in private So nobody else can see or know what's happening, which is pretty awful. And they usually target people who are like what I was saying, lovely care workers who are what I call doves. They're not necessarily assertive. They're usually popular. They're usually very competent, but they're very vulnerable. So it isn't a person who shouts and abuses everyone, that those people are narcissists. And it is a person who demands, isn't a person who demands high performance from everyone. That's just maybe a tough boss. So if you look at the next slide, let's say this is a very short clip to show you that harassment is a very different thing from bullying. Now, unfortunately, some people can be both. Harassment is about color, gender, or race, or disability or difference. It's about a prejudice of some kind in a leader, and it is to everybody. Harassment, people who harass love an audience. So they will be shouting at everybody. They will be abusing everybody, but they'll do it all in public. They love an audience. So it isn't like the covert bully who takes you to one side and does their dastardly thing. This is public in full view of everybody. As I say, unfortunately, some people can be both, which is just pretty awful. So when I was writing the book, because I study psychology, and one of the questions I asked on a psychology forum was, can bullies be cured? Are they capable of being cured? And the reply was, yes, they can. If the pain is sufficient, if they've been fired numerous times for bullying behavior, if they've had numerous personal grievances taken against them, if they've had 64 broken marriages or whatever, if the pain is sufficient, they will work out that they are the problem and they can, if they choose to, change their behaviors. However, narcissism is a completely different situation. Narcissism is very new to the psychological world to understand what makes them tick. And basically, the consensus of opinion was that no, narcissists cannot be cured. They are the full Monty. That is who they are. They cannot, and without mentioning a certain person's name, who's now sitting in the White House, that person is a narcissist, and nobody will ever change him. So signs that you have a toxic workplace. You will have high turnover. You will have high, if you're a leader, a manager, a supervisor listening to this, these will be the signs that are going on in your team. You will have high turnover. You will have high absenteeism. You will have low productivity no matter how much you shout and yell at people. No one will come forward with ideas and energy. There will be a bad energy about the place. People will start to work to rule. And if anyone has ever worked in a situation where people only do as much as they have to do, you will know that productivity is about as low as it can get. And trust me, I've worked with hundreds of teams over the years. And if there is a bad manager, male or female, quietly, there's a little bit of sabotage starts to creep in. People will quietly just make mistakes that they know will cause problems. It's just horrible, but it's kind of like the payback. So if you have any of those signs, know, and you are the leader, know that you need to do something about it. Now, signs that you're in a toxic relationship. So this is when I spoke to the women aside from the public webinar, because if they were going home to, abuse in a relationship, then, what a miserable life. And so my question was, or my statement to them was, if you find that you bend over backwards to please someone, and no matter what you do, you will never please them, you're in a toxic relationship. If the person you're with, or your mother, or your sister, or whatever, it always puts you in the wrong, and they're never wrong, it's a toxic relationship. If you feel as if you spend your life apologizing, you're in a toxic situation. And if you live your life walking on eggshells, then once again, you're in an abusive situation. And it's just horrible. It's insidious. And it's no life at all. I want to make sure that, yes, okay, you can buy the hard copy book, but I've also got the EPUB version. So if you're listening to this and you feel, oh my goodness, this is absolutely my life, you can download the ebook for $4.99 and you will get it immediately. It will tell you what to say, what not to say, how to say it, when to say it, what to do if you get bad reactions, how to deal with situations that keep going around in a circle, how to end the chain of abuse. So please, if you're listening to this and you feel, oh my goodness, this is my life, then make sure that you download that ebook. Because if you look at the very last slide, I'm absolutely, absolutely convinced that if someone treats you badly, you are not the problem. They are the problem, because normal people don't go around destroying each other. They just don't. So if you can even just do that for yourself, you can stand in your own power and think, when that person's yelling at you or abusing you or whatever, I am not the problem. They are the problem. So I hope that helps. Please get the book. Honestly, it's just life-changing to know how to deal assertively with people who treat you like that. No one has the right to treat you like that. So go well, take care, and please download the book.